Picture this. You're sitting across from your dad after announcing you're done with football forever, and instead of sympathy, he looks you dead in the eye and says, "You finally smartened up." That's exactly what happened to Julian Edelman when he retired, and his father's next words should terrify every aging quarterback in the league right now. He told his son that playing football is like being a fighter pilot. You have to be willing to die doing your job, and the day you start thinking about that reckless edge instead of just living it, that's the day you're finished. Julian Edelman understood something that Aaron Rodgers, now 41 years old and signing with Pittsburgh, might be learning the hard way. There's a moment when your body starts making decisions your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Edelman saw it happening to quarterbacks around the league, and he called it out with brutal honesty that most people missed. Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to sit in that pocket and take hits anymore. Neither did Eli Manning at the end. Kirk Cousins plays it safe now. The only exception? Matthew Stafford, who's somehow still willing to get absolutely destroyed for a completion. But here's what really happened behind closed doors with Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. While everyone was focused on the drama of his decision-making process, the real story was unfolding in contract negotiations that reveal everything about where Rodgers truly stands in this league. The Steelers signed him for $13.65 million guaranteed on a one-year deal, a relatively modest sum for a starting quarterback, even an aging one. Rodgers himself had previously stated he'd be willing to play for around $10 million. The deal structure speaks volumes. Translation? Even Pittsburgh isn't betting on Rodgers carrying them anymore. The Steelers basically structured this deal like they're hiring a caretaker, not a savior. They're saying, "Prove you can still do this at the highest level for one more year." But the deeper problem isn't money, it's chemistry. And Rodgers has been struggling with this since he left Green Bay. Think about when he was truly elite. Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings, receivers he'd worked with for years. Those relationships took time to build, and Rodgers doesn't have time anymore. When he went to the Jets, he didn't know those receivers, and the results showed. Now he's heading to Pittsburgh, where DK Metcalf is his primary target, a receiver the Steelers acquired in a blockbuster trade from Seattle in March 2025. Metcalf signed a 5-year, $150 million extension with Pittsburgh, making him one of the highest-paid receivers in the league. But despite Metcalf's talent, he's another receiver Rodgers has never built that crucial trust with. Even Tom Brady, who many consider the GOAT, struggled with this exact issue when he first got to Tampa Bay. It took about 12 games for Brady to really click with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, and that was in a COVID year where preparation was limited. But Brady had something Rodgers might not have anymore, that absolute killer instinct to push through the awkward phase. What's really fascinating is how this physical decline manifests differently for each quarterback. Julian Edelman gave us a rare glimpse into the brutal reality when he described his final season. He wasn't just dealing with pain, he was bone on bone in his knee, with a torn PCL that never got repaired because that's just not something you fix. Years of grinding had worn down his medial side, and his bow-legged stance made everything worse. But the moment that really ended Edelman's career wasn't the surgery or the failed physical. It was watching film of himself playing at less than 100%. He called those film sessions atrocious and said that's honestly why he retired. When you start looking old on film, not just in games but in practice, in your body language, that's when reality hits. Edelman said he wanted to throw up watching himself, and that's the moment he knew he had to walk away. Here's what makes this even more intense. Edelman respected the game too much to put out a substandard product. He needed to be the guy taking hits from linebackers, getting smacked over the middle, playing with that reckless intensity that made him special. If he couldn't practice hard every day, if he couldn't compete in one-on-one drills against defensive backs and talk trash all day long, then he wasn't the alpha anymore. And for elite competitors, that realization is devastating. The amount of energy he was putting into recovery and rehab kept increasing, but his output kept decreasing. That's the death spiral every aging athlete fears. You're working harder than ever just to be a shadow of your former self, and eventually, the math doesn't make sense anymore. Now contrast that with Matthew Stafford, who seems to have found some kind of fountain of youth when it comes to pocket courage. At 36 years old, Stafford is still sitting in there and taking massive hits that would make younger quarterbacks think twice. He's currently chasing Tom Brady's records for fourth-quarter comebacks and game-winning drives, and the way he's going about it shows a different approach to aging in the NFL. Stafford currently sits in a tie at fourth all-time in fourth-quarter comebacks with 38, tied with Matt Ryan. Tom Brady holds the record with 46. He's fifth all-time with 49 game-winning drives, with Brady at 58. But here's what's remarkable. Stafford has been incredibly clutch throughout his career. In 2016, he set an NFL record with 8 fourth-quarter comebacks in a single season, leading the Lions to a 9-7 record when they could have easily been 1-15 without those heroics. The difference is that Stafford hasn't lost that willingness to stand in there and take punishment for his team. Whether it's his Super Bowl run with the Rams or his current pursuit of Brady's records, Stafford embodies that fighter-pilot mentality Edelman's dad was talking about. He's still willing to die doing his job, metaphorically speaking, and that's what separates the true competitors from the guys who start playing it safe. Speaking of guys who understand this mentality, let's talk about Mike Vrabel and what he brings to New England. Julian Edelman had some incredible insights about Vrabel that most people never hear. He called Vrabel the rare case of being a tough guy that's really smart. Most people can alpha you with their presence or alpha you with their intelligence, but not both. Vrabel can do both, and that's what made him such a special player, and now a special coach. Edelman told a story about being at the Kentucky Derby with Vrabel, and out of nowhere, Vrabel pulled out a specific play they ran against each other when he was with Tennessee. He could recall every detail, every assignment, years after the fact. That kind of football intelligence combined with his physical presence is exactly what the Patriots need right now. Bill Belichick used to say that Vrabel was the smartest player he ever coached, with insane recall ability. The Patriots are looking to double their win total this year, and a lot of that optimism stems from having Vrabel back in the building. He knows how to get the best out of players because he's been there himself. He understands the sacrifice it takes and the mentality required, but he also has the intelligence to game plan and adjust. When Edelman visited Patriots camp recently, he was impressed by the tempo and the lack of standing around. That's Vrabel's influence already showing up. Drake May caught Edelman's attention for the right reasons too. After Edelman spoke to the team, May came up and asked smart questions about the offensive system they're running, the same system Edelman had success in. But what impressed Edelman wasn't just the questions, it was that May wasn't intimidated or embarrassed to ask. He showed leadership by seeking knowledge from someone who had been successful in that system. That's the kind of humility and hunger that wins in this league. But here's where things get really interesting, and this connects back to the aging quarterback discussion. The Patriots under Vrabel represent everything the San Francisco 49ers are not right now. The 49ers are a perfect example of what happens when you build your entire identity around aging stars and hope they stay healthy. Kyle Shanahan is a great coach, no question. But his teams have struggled without Christian McCaffrey, and that should terrify 49ers fans. When your entire offensive philosophy depends on one injury-prone running back staying healthy, you're already in trouble. McCaffrey was limited to just 4 games in 2024 due to injuries, starting the season on injured reserve with Achilles tendonitis and ending it on IR with a PCL injury. Add in an aging offensive line with Trent Williams getting older, and suddenly you're looking at a team that's built on a foundation of sand. The 49ers lost Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga after the 2024 season, 2 defensive leaders who the coaching staff absolutely loved. These weren't just good players. They were culture guys, tough guys who played through pain and set the tone for everyone else. When you lose that kind of leadership, especially on the defensive side, it creates a ripple effect throughout the entire organization. The team used 6 of their 11 draft picks in 2025, including their first 5 selections, to rebuild the defense. Here's what really worries people about San Francisco. They need their rookie class to contribute immediately. The 49ers are counting on first-round pick Michael Williams, second-round pick Alfred Collins, and third-round pick Nick Martin to offset the losses of proven veterans. When you're drafting at the end of every round because you keep winning, you better hit on those mid to late round picks. The pressure is immense. This connects perfectly to what Edelman was saying about older teams and the mental aspects of aging. When a team's best players are predominantly either injured guys or old guys, and you're playing a 17-game season, that mental fatigue starts to set in. Players start thinking about preservation instead of domination. They start calculating hits instead of just playing football. Edelman lived through this exact scenario with the 2019 Patriots. They came off a Super Bowl win, but the roster was aging, Rob Gronkowski retired, and they brought in Antonio Brown for that bizarre stint. Edelman said whenever coaches start saying, "If this guy stays healthy, we're going to be good," that means your team doesn't have the depth to win. You're banking on perfection in a league where perfection is impossible. The 49ers are in that exact situation right now. If McCaffrey stays healthy, if Trent Williams holds up, if their young defense can replace the production of proven veterans, then maybe they compete. But that's a lot of ifs for a team with Super Bowl aspirations. Here's the brutal truth that connects all of these stories. There's no such thing as an easy schedule in the NFL, despite what analysts want to tell you about San Francisco's path this year. Edelman was sick of hearing about easy schedules because everyone in the league is getting paid the same money to try and beat you. There's no Louisiana Lafayette or some FCS school on your schedule. Every team has talent. Every team has players who can make game-changing plays. Edelman learned this lesson the hard way in 2013 when the Patriots got absolutely housed by the Cleveland Browns. He still remembered that game vividly years later. Bright blue skies, beautiful weather in Cleveland, and Peyton Hillis running over Patriots defenders like they were traffic cones. Bill Belichick made sure they never forgot that game. Every time they played Cleveland after that, they watched a 35-play cut-up of that embarrassing loss. That's the difference between championship organizations and teams that make excuses. The Patriots never overlooked anyone again after that Cleveland game, and Belichick used it as a teaching tool for years. When you start believing in easy games or easy schedules, you're setting yourself up for the kind of reality check that can derail an entire season. The real question facing all these aging quarterbacks and declining teams is whether they have the self-awareness to recognize when it's time to make changes. Aaron Rodgers has stated he's pretty sure 2025 will be his final season, acknowledging that this one-year deal with Pittsburgh is likely his farewell tour. The 49ers might have this season to prove their aging core can hold up for another championship run. The Patriots under Vrabel are betting that their culture and coaching can overcome talent deficits. But the most important lesson comes from Julian Edelman's story about knowing when to walk away. Sometimes the hardest thing for elite competitors is recognizing that their standards are higher than what their bodies can deliver anymore. Edelman didn't want to put out a product that wasn't representative of who he was as a player. He respected the game too much to become a shell of his former self. That's the choice facing every aging star in the NFL right now. Do you chase one more contract, one more season, one more chance at glory? Or do you walk away on your own terms before the game forces you out? For some guys like Matthew Stafford, the fire still burns bright enough to justify the punishment. For others like Aaron Rodgers, the window might be closing faster than they want to admit. The NFL doesn't wait for anyone to make these decisions gracefully. Father Time is undefeated, and eventually, every fighter pilot has to land their plane for the final time. The only question is whether you choose the landing strip or wait for the crash. What do you think happens when these aging stars realize they're not the alpha anymore? Will Aaron Rodgers find that chemistry with DK Metcalf? Or are we watching the final act of a legend who stayed too long? And can the 49ers prove that experience and coaching can overcome Father Time? Or are we about to witness one of the most dramatic collapses in recent NFL history?